managers here. And I'm also a family member of a person with Parkinson's. My younger brother, John, was diagnosed about 8-9 years ago. And so moderating today with me is my amazing, wonderful counterpart, coworker, Kim Nitz. There she is. And we also have Danielle and Adeline from the foundation hosting with us. So during this time of social distancing, we hope you're staying safe and healthy at home. But of course, physical distance doesn't have to mean emotional distance. So the foundation has been hosting these weekly educational programs in a virtual format through our PD Health at Home series. So this is new for all of us, so we thank you while we get used to this new format. And during today's program, you can feel free to submit your questions via the chat. So there's a chat icon down at the bottom of your screen, and you can go ahead and feel free to write in your questions, and we'll get as many of those answered as we can. And I know we have a lot of veterans on today. We want to thank you for your service and thank you for joining us. We also want to thank Edward Jones. They are our sponsor today. And today's session, just so everybody knows, will be recorded and archived at parkinson.org/pdhealth. So it's now my pleasure to welcome our speaker, Lou Eisenbrandt. Lou is a resident of Overland Park, Kansas. She is a retired registered nurse who served as an Army nurse during the Vietnam War from 1969 to 1970. She's a frequent speaker, sharing her experience during the war with students and community groups. And she has lived with Parkinson's disease for 18 years. So in 2015, she wrote a memoir that was entitled Vietnam Nurse, Mending and Remembering, and it was published by Nitz Publishing and chronicles her years of service. So with that, I hand it off to Lou.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I also want to welcome all of you to this session. I think so often when we talk about Parkinson's, all we think about are the physical signs, and there's so much more that goes with Parkinson's. Having had it for 18 years, I feel a little like I've been through most of the ups and downs and good and bad parts. So hopefully you'll get some hints of things that might be helpful to you living with the Parkinson's. I understand there are quite a few of you here who are veterans. I just want to make a suggestion. If you've not consulted with the Veterans Administration, you might want to consider doing so, because Parkinson's is one of those conditions that has been determined to be a possible result of exposure to Agent Orange. And there are benefits to be had. So if you are a veteran and you're living with Parkinson's, I would suggest you contact the VA or the American Legion, Vietnam Veterans of America, VFW. They can give you some guidance as to how to file a claim for disability compensation. It was the herbicides and pesticides that Agent Orange put down almost everywhere in Vietnam that has led to so many different conditions and diseases. And one other topic I want to just cover briefly before we get started, and that is Parkinson's in the age of COVID-19, the coronavirus. The thing that I want you to keep in mind is that, as most of you probably know, stress can aggravate and exacerbate your symptoms. Tremor, physical stiffness because you tense up when you're stressed, imbalance, which is an issue that I have. All of those can be aggravated by stress. So in this time of heightened concern and not being able to get out as much as you can, you may need to talk to your doctor and see if just maybe for a day or something that's coming up that has you stressed, you might need to take a bit more medication. I'm not talking about weeks, I'm talking about a day or two, but please talk with your physician before you go ahead and do that on your own. it may just be that the stress will make your meds less effective and you'll need a little bit of a boost. So keep that in mind. And then the other topic with the COVID virus is isolation. That is something that is not exclusive to what we've been going through, but it certainly has exacerbated it. So it's important and difficult, I realize, to stay in touch with friends and family with the usual precautions, masks, distancing. When the weather is nice, getting outside will help immensely. Also, try to follow a routine. Now, not the routine you had before you were diagnosed, but a new routine. But do try to do some similar things every day so your body gets a chance to adjust, and it's like every day isn't a new surprise. Look for new things in your familiar surroundings. So perhaps you found a book on the shelf you hadn't realized was there. Something that will give you a little incentive to keep going. Old photo albums can help. You just need to not sit in a chair and not get out and expose yourself to, like I said, photos and things of that sort. That's perfectly safe to do. If you need something and you are worried about getting out, try delivery services. I'm sure they have picked up tremendously in the last few weeks, but especially if you have trouble getting around, that is a very good thing to do. So now let's just talk about emotions. Next. As you can see, here's a whole list of things. And if you're honest with yourselves, the best part is that you came to listen to this or watch this, which means you're saying, yes, I think I have an issue with some of these things. It is perfectly okay to have feelings, anywhere from anger to sadness, to fear about the future, frustration, if you're no longer able to drive or you can't seem to get out. Some people struggle with guilt, but the most important thing is to recognize them. Next. Next. So think to yourself, have you felt any of these with your Parkinson's diagnosis? Not just right now, but just in general since you were first diagnosed. Stress or anxiety, fear, frustration or anger, totally normal. Guilt, increased sadness, or are you fortunate and have not had any of these? This is a little quick poll. You can click on what pertains to you, and we'll submit that, and then we'll kind of tally up at the end and see how everybody is doing in their own particular living with Parkinson's. Well, certainly stress and anxiety, as always, is at the top of the list. And I'm glad to see that the others are pretty equal. Fear, I know fear of the unknown is always a challenge. Sometimes people feel guilty because they'll think, well, why did I get this and somebody else didn't? We see a lot of that in PTSD from soldiers. And profound sadness is right up there. Okay, well, thank you for weighing in. I appreciate that. So these are the things that you can experience. And now our goal is to try and help recommend solutions, or at least something that might help ease your situation. Next. So the first category is quiet your emotions. And this is a list of things. Perhaps you'll find one or two things in here that may help you. when I say meditation, it does not mean you need to sit like a monk for an hour and wipe your brain free of any thoughts. It can be 5 minutes or 10 minutes, which probably a lot of us have more time to do now than we did previously. But it's a way of just turning your brain off is basically what you're doing. You're clearing anything. You're forgetting about what's on the news. You're forgetting about family issues. You're forgetting about what you are struggling with. Just clear your mind. That's what meditation is. It can be done to music or just sitting quietly in a corner. Prayer, many people find at this time when we're under extra duress that prayer is very helpful. Again, I know that a lot of people would like to be going to their individual houses of worship, but a lot of people, like I do, believe that if there is a higher being, that higher being is everywhere. So whether you're in your own room or in a church, you can still pray. Reading, informational or otherwise. And I put this in here because a lot of people read to escape, which is perfect. But sometimes you need to read and inform yourself, especially if you're new to Parkinson's. I remember when I saw my neurologist the first time and she said, read up, make yourself knowledgeable about what's happening to you. Well, by the time I came back the next time with 20 questions, she said, stop reading. So I was getting way ahead of myself. But you really want to be a self-advocate. So if you don't know the answer to something, seek it out and look for good resources for reading. As they say, you can't believe everything that you read on the internet. Some sites are very good, but not all. The next category is silence. Silence is so underrated. There are times when my husband and I are in the car that we don't turn on anything. No music, no NPR, whatever. And I think it's good to just sit in silence. When we get back to full shopping and stuff, we'll be bombarded with sounds, music in one department and different music in another. So there's much to be said for silence. Music, whatever genre relaxes you, can be very welcoming, very soothing, and quiet your emotions. It can take you back to a time when you were happy and your body was working just fine, or maybe you need something more upbeat. Again, it depends on what relaxes you. If hard rock is your thing, go ahead and listen to it. And if you like elevator music, that will work as well. Imagery is something that goes along with relaxation. And what it means is you pretend in your mind, close your eyes, that you're lying on a beach with the warm sun melting in, or like an ice cube melting into the sidewalk. Sometimes if you just think about it, it will slow you down and relax you. My husband asked me this morning what I wanted to do for Mother's Day, and I said, lie on a beach in the sun. He said, and do you have a second choice? So, you know, it's not like being there, but it certainly will help you relax. And along with doing that, you can relax away the stress by starting at your head and thinking, relax my forehead, relax my jaw. You'd be amazed how tense your jaws can get, and work it out of your body. When back in the 70s, I taught prenatal childbirth classes when they were brand new, and that we taught those methods for moms who were in labor. It really does help relax the body. Deep, slow, intentional breathing, which is taught in yoga, find that very soothing. I even find that it helps my tremor when you just intentionally slow yourself down. Something else I wanted to mention that quieting your emotions, it's a different sort of thing you don't think about. But if you're struggling with walking and hanging on to things as you walk, if you have to do stairs, count them. Because when you count, you have to concentrate on your breathing and what you're doing. You can't be looking around. I find that to be very comforting when I'm trying to take some stairs and my body's saying, I don't think I want to do that. Slow, intentional breathing and counting each step helps a whole lot. Strolling, if you're outside on an even surface, I use a treadmill when the weather is bad, and you don't have to pump iron and really race. You're not preparing for a marathon. You're just moving. Movement is so important with Parkinson's. Good nutrition. That is good for everybody, but I think it's especially important with Parkinson's. There have been many studies done on certain things that will influence your medication, the timing of your medication, but good nutrition is very important. And pets. There has been proven benefits that just simply by petting a dog or a cat, it lowers your heart rate, lowers your blood pressure. And in these days when we're kind of closed in, it's comforting to have a pet with you. Next. So the second category is sharing your emotions. And this is really, this one's a challenge at this time of the year with our current situation. Good friends are so important. Avoid negative individuals. Friends may not know what to say, and sometimes you can sense that. I tend to make light of my Parkinson's from time to time because it puts other people at ease. For instance, I saw something that they were doing weight work, lifting weights, and they had about a few years ago, they came out with some that jiggled, so they moved when you walked. I said, well, I don't need to buy some that move that. If I just let my tremor go, that'll take care of it. So you really want to stick with friends who are uplifting and positive. We all know one or two people who, no matter what you have, they have it worse, or they can outdo you at anything because they know more. So stay away from the friends who don't have your best interest at heart. An interested family member is very important. I hear stories of people who don't believe each other, that they just say, I think it's all in your head. And that's unfortunate. If you're struggling with that in your family, there's, I guess, simply not getting together as much, which may be what's happening now, is a positive step. But that can be a challenge if you have family members who don't believe what you have is real. Personally, I am a writer, and so poetry and personal journaling are two things that I do. Now with personal journaling, you don't have to write great things. You can write when you crawl into bed what one nice thing you experienced in that particular day and say, okay, I'm going to go to bed with this nice thought in my head. Or you might write something down in the morning, just a sentence, like the sun came out. And as far as journaling is concerned, sometimes just writing it down on a piece of paper makes you feel good. You don't have to save it. I know I have volumes. I'm sure my children are going to be thrilled when I pass on and they've got all my journals. But just the act of writing it down is a good way to share your emotions. Poetry, I never was good at writing poetry, but I have written some in recent years that isn't too bad. And again, if you're not sharing with others, it's okay. But just the act of writing helps. Now, I know a lot of us in this age of coronavirus have taken up crafts that we used to do and didn't have time for. Painting, craft work, both can be very soothing, relaxing. Now, if stringing little beads on a thread is not your cup of tea, then don't try that because you'll only make yourself worse. But it's good to do something that you've been wanting to do for some time. Gardening is always, I love gardening, but you either like it or you don't. So if digging in the dirt is not your thing, you'll have somebody else do it for you. You may need a seat. You know, squatting and bending over may not work for you as it did when you were younger, but you can still elevate flower boxes and things so you don't have to bend over quite so much, and leave the hard work for your husband or other's wife or friend or something else. Don't overdo. Church or support groups. There are lots and lots of support groups for Parkinson's and a variety of other conditions. So these can be very helpful. Some people are not comfortable with sharing with other people, and that's just fine. But if that is something that brings joy and relaxation to you, then that's a good thing to be part of. And I know now we're probably all doing that on Zoom, which isn't quite the same, but it'll have to do for now. A therapist or a second opinion if you're unhappy with what is being done for your Parkinson's right now can make a big difference. So there's no shame in going to a therapist. Sometimes, again, just talking about what your issues are is helpful. You might also check with medication, especially if you're struggling with some anxiety and depression, because depression is very much a part of Parkinson's. I've read statistics as high as 75% of people with Parkinson's struggle with some form of depression. It's not, it does not shame you if you get on medication for Parkinson's. And the other thing you might check if you're struggling with that is some of the other medications you're on, because some of them have side effects that you don't think about. So those are two medical possibilities you might consider. And then the last one is local resources. The Parkinson's Foundation Helpline. There are also local organizations. One of them is Turning Point here in Leawood, and other places that you can go for information and help with what you're living with right then. Okay, next. So it's your chance to weigh in again. Do you actively discuss your emotions with a trusted friend or family member, Parkinson's support group network, church or community group, journaling, writing, or social media, or a therapist or other professional? It's your chance to vote and share your thoughts with us. As I said at the beginning, friends, positive friends are so important. And I think that's why this is even a bigger struggle right now, because I haven't hugged my grandchildren in 5 weeks, which is a challenge, but I know it's for the better. But it simply is not a warm, fuzzy time right now. Okay, thank you. Okay, next. Our last category is called exercise and work through your emotions. any of these will help you maintain as strong a body as you can get. We are limited, most of us who have Parkinson's are limited with, we can't do what we used to do. And I find myself saying that on numerous occasions, like, I used to be able to, but that you can always do something. And when I was first diagnosed, the neurologist said, exercise, exercise, exercise. Fortunately, I said, you're preaching to the choir, because I've been doing that most of my life. But things have changed. So one of the things you can do is Tai Chi. There are places that you can take Tai Chi, some of them at no cost, especially in the Kansas City area. I first took Tai Chi before I was diagnosed. had been a runner and played tennis, and I just want something to sort of slow me down a little bit. And so I did Tai Chi. Tai Chi is excellent for balance. If you're really struggling with your balance and moving your feet and keeping upright at the same time, Tai Chi is really great for that. The second thing is yoga, and I did yoga for about 11 years, and I found it wonderful. And I can tell now that it made a difference at the time. I had to give up the yoga class only because my body moves slower now, and I would still be on the last posture when they were two moves ahead of me. But I still do it at home at a slower speed. And it just keeps your body more limber, because as your Parkinson's progresses, many of you will experience a kind of a stiffness or a tightness in your body. And so this really, the yoga really helps with that quite a bit. Walking on a treadmill. Walk or treadmill, I should say. This time of the year, the neighbors have been coming out of the woodwork with all of us being closed in for so long. And we're finally getting decent weather, so we don't have to worry about snow and ice. And I suggest anytime you can walk outdoors to do that. The treadmill will keep your muscles in shape, but it won't have the same effect as walking outside. But just make sure you're walking in a safe area. A lot of the older houses with older sidewalks are uneven, and talk to yourself and say, pick your feet up, pick your feet up, pick your feet up. Or at least that's what I do. Maybe I'm the only one, but it seems to help, because if you start to shuffle, that's when you run into problems with sidewalks. So walking is good for everything. Water aerobics can be very helpful, again, with balance. Also, you don't feel the muscle soreness as much with water aerobics as you do if you're just doing some sort of aerobic moves on your own in your house. So if you have access to the Y or someplace that has a pool that they can let you use water aerobics, that's a good way to go. Massage therapy. I have been doing massage therapy off and on for several years. Obviously, we're off right now till the virus moves on. But massage therapy, it's been proven to release endorphins, which serotonin and dopamine are part of. And that's what makes us happy. So just by the act of getting a massage, you are releasing endorphins and relaxing your muscles. And it feels so terrific when you're done. You feel renewed. And it also eases some, if you have a little arthritis or something else along with your Parkinson's. And for many of you, it's not just one side. When your Parkinson's first starts, frequently you find that your symptoms are predominantly on one side, but as it progresses, you may sense it on both sides. And the massage therapy certainly helps a lot with that to balance it out. The next category is Pilates, and I will be honest with you, I have never done Pilates, but I know people who do and really appreciate the strengthening workout that your body gets from Pilates. So if that is available to you, that's certainly a good thing to do. Sports. Well, I guess right now, tennis if you're not breathing on your partner, golf if you're taking a cart by yourself, and I don't know about the boxing. I'm guessing that boxing is probably on a hold right now. I personally tried boxing once and it wasn't for me, but I know it's done a world of good for a lot of people. So the sports thing is kind of up in the air for right now, but surely eventually we'll get back to the point where taking part in sports is okay to do. And I won't say which ones I think are okay to do now because I'll get in trouble. So, complementary therapies. This includes things like acupuncture. I've done acupuncture for many years, and I really found it to be helpful. Your body has a certain amount of energy, personal energy, but sometimes it kind of gets stuck somewhere. It's like, it doesn't make sense why you get a headache and the rest of your body is fine. Well, maybe that your energy is stuck and therefore you've ended up with a headache. I just find acupuncture very relaxing. It's not painful. Just lying on the table for 40 minutes with very quiet music in the background is very therapeutic. And along with, the patterns that the nerves run, that's what they check when they're doing acupuncture as to what's, where you put the needles affects particular parts of the body. So I found acupuncture to be very helpful. There are some supplements. Again, I check with your doctor. There are lots of things that are touted on the internet. Some may be helpful, some may not. And you just want to check with your doctor before you jump into doing something. I, for many years, took CoQ10 because it was supposed to delay or slow the progress of Parkinson's. And then about a year ago, I read that those studies were not accurate. So you check with him or her. That's the best way to go. Jin Shin Jitsu is, it's a little like acupuncture without needles. It's a Japanese form, again, of moving your body's energy throughout the body. And you can learn it online. There are places that teach classes, and you can do it yourself. It's just putting your hands in certain places, holding certain fingers, things of that sort. So you don't need any equipment or any place special to be. You can learn it yourself. So this is a list of things that I would recommend you try, 1 or 2, 3 or 4. And keep in mind that, especially right now, because things are so up in the air, you're probably going to have more mixed emotions about things. For instance, I lost my driving privileges about 2 months ago. When I say lost, my family decided I needed to give up my driving privileges. It's a challenge, And needless to say, I was not happy. I was frustrated because I couldn't just climb in the car and pop to the store to get something. But in the end, I realized they had my best interest at heart. So now, not just are we all stuck in the house together, but I can't go anywhere if I did have free time. So things will change. Right now, they're kind of tight, but if you can try one or two of these items, I think it may help you. And just know that no two people are alike with Parkinson's. Each person has different needs, different symptoms. And if your neighbor has Parkinson's, don't compare yours to them, because you don't know exactly what their body is going to do. Years ago, I had a woman say to me, well, I was newly diagnosed about a year, and she said, well, I've had it for 9 years, and her whole body shook and she could barely walk. And she said, this will be you in 9 years. Well, that was not what I needed to hear. So just take it, begin slowly, as it says, choose wisely, experiment to find out what is best for you. Just take it easy. Okay, next. So after all of this, are you incorporating daily exercise, physical activity to help with emotional wellness? If you could weigh in. And I will say that 4 things in closing have been proven to make us happy: exercise, laughter, chocolate, and intimacy. Decide how they fit into your wellness schedule. Good. I'm thrilled to see so many of you are exercising. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Wonderful. Well, Lou, thank you very much. Your words of wisdom through your 18 years, I think are very helpful to all of us. We do have a couple of questions that have come in that I wanted to share with you. We first one, thank you for your service, Lou. And from the perspective of resilience, to what extent do you attribute your military service to your strong resilience?
A fair amount. Growing up, I was the oldest of 5 children. So being a girl as well, I was given a lot of you're in charge situations, or more likely, you're the oldest, you should have known better. So I think I learned at an early age to be resilient, but certainly being in the military, you can't just say, oh, I changed my mind. I don't want to do this, or I don't like this, or I really wanted to go to France. I didn't want to go to Vietnam, or whatever. So I think you're just by nature get to be more resilient. And my mother always said, if you're going to do something, do it right. Don't do it halfway. And so I think that's pretty much kept me in line for many years.
Excellent. We also had someone ask, they just wanted to hear a little bit more about what your experience was then, what your role was in Vietnam.
Oh, yes, I just joined the Army when I was a senior in nurses training. And they had a program at the time that you could join the Army. They'd pay you during your senior year, and then you owed them 2 years of active duty. And so I did my basic training, and then my first duty assignment was Fort Dix, New Jersey. I was there for 9 months when I got orders for Vietnam. When I got to Vietnam, they asked me where I wanted to go. Well, I had no idea. I'd never been to Vietnam, but I picked a place that a former roommate of mine I knew was stationed at. And so it happened to be at the 91st Evac in Chu Lai, which was on a cliff overlooking the South China Sea. So I could not have picked a prettier spot. So when it was 120 degrees, it only felt like 110. But I worked the year that I was there, the first 3 months I worked on medical floor, taking care of patients with hepatitis or malaria or jungle rot, which is when your feet get wet and you can't get them dry and they rub big sores. And then the last 8.5 months, I worked in the emergency room where we would get the guys, usually by helicopter or ambulance, directly from the field. So I saw everything from double amputees to gunshot wounds to severe head wounds and lots of shrapnel injuries, pretty much the whole gamut. So for 8.5 months, I worked as the emergency room nurse. And then I decided I had given my best to the Army and it was time to return to civilian life.
Great. Switching gears, we had a question from the caregivers out here. From your experience after 18 years with Parkinson's, what is the one most important thing family and friends can do as part of your support system?
Support you. Like I said, I think the hardest thing is if you have friends or family that say, well, I don't believe you really are having this issue. And whether it's the person who has it or the caregiver, it's very difficult. So admitting, yes, I know you have this, and then asking that person, you ask the patient, what can I do for you? Or what can I do for you as a caregiver? Time off, maybe you can go spend a couple hours and give the caregiver time to go get her hair done, which we're all thinking about now, or just giving them a break to go out to lunch, something like that. But I think that supporting the supporters is a class that I've taken. And I think it's so important because you have to remember Parkinson's or most any long-term chronic condition affects the whole family. It doesn't just affect the person with the Parkinson's. And you cannot catch Parkinson's from another person. So you don't need to avoid them. You need to be there and just sincerely say, what can I do to help you? Because if you mean it, it will mean a lot to that person.
Well, that's a great message, I think, to all of us and a reminder of what we can do. I do want to just mention a couple of things, Lou. With many of the questions that came in today and some of the things that we talked about, I do want to be sure that folks know about the Parkinson's Foundation helpline, and we'll be showing a slide with the information on that. We do have people from all over the country that have joined us today, and that's fantastic. Encourage everyone to stay connected and to use Parkinson.org and our helpline to do that. I want to be sure and let everyone know that next week on Thursday the 14th, we'll be doing a brain and body boost with a physical therapist during this Take Time Thursday. And always for a complete lineup each week, you can go to parkinson.org/pdhealth. Also on Tuesday, May 19th, we're going to do a national program called Beyond the Diagnosis. And that program will offer a look at how to manage symptoms as they progress with Parkinson's. We again want to thank our gracious and generous sponsors at Edward Jones today for making this program happen. we want to thank Lou for her time and all of her expertise and her resilience in bringing this message to us today. And then on, and I think we have a slide, this Saturday on May 9th, we'll be holding our first ever virtual walk for Parkinson's, our Moving Day Walk. And it is by no means too late to join us. Get registered to join us Saturday, May 9th at noon Central Time, 1 Eastern Time for this great opportunity, an important fundraiser towards the programs that the Parkinson's Foundation does. And then lastly, we've got information here on our helpline, just reminding everyone to stay connected with us. We thank everyone for being here today, and hope you all stay well, stay engaged, and try to put to use some of the things that Lou shared with us today. So with that, thank you, and we will conclude.